Welcome back to another episode of the What We're Watching podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jenny, and today we're talking about Dan in real life.
And it's a very special episode because we have a friend of the pod here today. Julie, hi. Thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm so excited. This is truly the biggest honor of my life.
Yay.
We're so happy that you're here.
Julie is a prop stylist, set designer, wardrobe stylist. She lives in New York, and she's a great follow on social media. Julie, tell them where to find you.
Oh my gosh, I'm __ Jules Rose, like the flower, __. And I'm a huge fan of the podcast. I found you guys, Spotify just recommended you as a listen, and I've been a huge fan ever since. It's truly one of my most listened to podcasts, so I'm so honored to be here.
That's wild to me, and I also feel like you're one of our good friends now because we met in person when you visited Denver and when Megan still lived here.
Oh my gosh, I know. I was just like, I know we'll be friends. Like, I have to reach out to them. This is a friendship waiting to happen, so yeah.
I'm so glad that you did. It's the best.
Me too.
Yay.
Also, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. It's Thanksgiving week. If you traveled this week, I hope you guys had safe travels. I hope you're enjoying time with family or at least a little bit of time off work. It's a big week for everybody.
Oh, so sorry to plug this, but another most exciting thing in my life happening is I'm going to be in the Macy's Day Parade. So
shut up.
I'm very excited. So I don't know which float I'll be escorting yet, but I will be dressed as a character. So if you're watching the parade, you can find me.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I will be watching.
I will be watching.
Gosh.
That's so exciting. You need
So
to tell us.
random, but
you need to tell
yeah.
us when you know, if you can.
And we'll update the listeners too.
Okay. Yeah. It's just always been a dream and it's like finally happening and I'm so excited. So
Wait, how does that work? Like, how do you get to do that?
yeah, you have to be connected to Macy's, like be an employee or be connected to someone. And so I always had this running joke that I would just go hang out at Macy's and become friends with everyone so that they would get me into the parade. But basically I just posted, I made it a goal this year to be in the parade because we go every year and it's just always a dream. And I'm just such a hype gal that I was like, I have to be in this. Yeah, so I posted my goals on my stories and I just realized how powerful it is to tell people your goals because all these people came out of the woodwork and were like, hey, I know this person. And I got connected with literally the director of the parade and now I'm going to be in it. So my New York dream come true, being on this podcast and talking about Dan in real life and being in the parade. So it's a good year.
Wow, incredible.
A great week. Also, great lesson. That's how we became friends because I said that I want to become a writer and Jenny was like, me too. So it makes a big difference when you say it out loud, you know?
Yeah, people don't know how to help you if they don't know what your dreams are.
Totally. Okay, so the logline for Dan in real life is, widower Dan Burns gives family advice in his column but struggles with raising his 3 daughters alone. After arriving at Dan's parents' for a family get-together, their bickering drives him to take refuge in the local bookstore where he meets and swiftly falls for charming Marie. However, the revelation that Marie is in fact the new girlfriend of Dan's brother brings their fragile flirtation to a shuddering halt. I also love this movie, Julie. This is like one of my family's most watched movies. And I forgot that I feel like every word of this movie until I was rewatching it for this podcast. But Jenny, you had never seen it, right?
No, I had never seen this movie before.
What are your overarching thoughts?
I thought it was really cute and nostalgic. And I think I was really excited because I heard that both of you really liked this movie. And so I was excited to actually understand why. And Julie will get into this, but you were telling us about your experience with Dan in real life the very first time that we met you. And you were dropping all of these things about the movie that I didn't understand yet. And so it was so great to watch the movie and be like, oh, that's what she was talking about. Like, that's the house she was talking about. That's what they were doing. And so, yeah, I loved it. And I loved that, like, personal connection that I felt like I had to it.
I feel like this is such an underrated movie, too. Like, I don't hear a lot of people talk about it. But once you watch it, I just think it's so good. And if you guys haven't seen it, it's one of Steve Carell's, I think, maybe if not fewer, but definitely earlier dramatic roles. I feel like he does that a lot more now, but he didn't do that as much when this first came out.
It was filmed like right in the middle of Office peak. So
yeah, very different for him. Well, speaking of, we know that Julie is a big fan of this movie, and that's part of why you came on to talk about it, which is so exciting. Do you want to let the listeners in a little bit on why you love it? and your experience.
Yeah, this is my very favorite movie of all time. You can't see me right now, but I am wearing a sweatshirt from the actual bowling alley in the movie. So I came prepared with the theme. We have the good Dan in real life vibes. But I actually don't remember the first time that I saw this movie. I think same as you, it just kind of was always a family favorite. And my family, we actually did a family reunion where it was the Dumas family in real life, and we did some of the things from the movie. But to take it even a step further, I read an article a few years ago that was posted years before that, and it mentioned that you can rent the house from the movie. And if you've seen this movie, you know how incredible this house is. It's almost a character, I feel like, in the movie itself. And so I stored that very vital information away for later. And I was like, okay, my dream for my 30th birthday is I'm going to invite a few of my friends. We'll stay at this house and we'll reenact all these amazing scenes from the movie. And so, yeah, then this past year, I turned 30 and I started to search for this house and I couldn't find information on it anywhere. I was like searching all over just everything. I contacted local real estate agents. I contacted the local newspaper. I even reached out to the producer of the film because I was like, okay, who would know about this location? So I was like, oh, the producer, like, I wonder if they'd respond. So I found his email online and I reached out to him and he responded, which as a huge fan of this movie, I was like so starstruck. But he was like, oh my gosh, you caught me at the perfect time. I'm about to move offices and throw out, he called it DIRL files, his Dan in real life files. He was like, so let me like peek through and see what I can find. And I was like, okay, are you throwing those out? Do you want to like give them to me? I didn't actually say that, but you know, he should give them to me. So yeah, nothing really came of it. And I ended up throwing this birthday. We will see if I got connected to the house. I have some tea on it later and I'll get back to it. But basically I called it Julie Turns 30 in Real Life weekend. I invited my friends. We went to all the places in the movie. So I've been to them in person. I'm so excited to share little tidbits that I found being at these places in person as we talk today.
I love that so much. I love everything about it. But part of this story it just takes me back to what we were talking about with the Macy's parade. And I think I wasn't that shocked that you're going to be in the parade because I feel like you just make this stuff happen.
Oh my gosh. I just love a theme and I know what I love. And when I love something, I'm like, let's go. Like that's what's so fun for me. So
I really respect that
Me
and
too.
admire it, honestly.
thank
It's a great
you. I feel
quality.
like you guys are the same. You're like rom-coms. Let's go. Let's start a whole amazing podcast.
But I think I want to take inspiration from you and like lean into actually making real life experiences from this love of movies. And I don't know, I love the idea of like a themed party or like making a memory that you're going to keep forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you. Well, this is such a perfect movie to have a theme around with a big group of friends because all of the things they do in it are just so cute and wholesome. And I think this is a really good one.
So Dan in Real Life came out in late October of 2007, and it's considered by some to be a non-holiday holiday film. And as someone who had no experience with this movie, I was like, wow, this is the most Thanksgiving, not Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah, which is fun because I can't really think of a Thanksgiving movie.
No.
No, but the family reunion vibe fits Thanksgiving very well, I think.
Yeah.
Without being too much, you know, like you could watch this any time of year, but I feel like Thanksgiving is like a really cozy time to watch it if you're going to watch it annually.
Totally, it gives fall.
It was directed by Peter Hedges, who did What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and it was written by him and someone named Pierce Gardner. And a lot of it was actually based on Pierce Gardner's personal experiences going to summer vacations in Delaware with his wife's extended family.
Did we talk about Peter Hedges in another episode? I feel like you have brought up What's Eating Gilbert Grape another time. And those are probably the only 2 times I've ever heard anyone say that.
It's with, oh gosh, what's his name? What's his name who dates 20-year-olds all the time?
Leo.
Leo, yeah. It's like his first movie that he ever had.
I haven't seen it. I need to.
I haven't seen it either, but I've heard of it a lot.
Okay, you're right. I don't think we've talked about any of his other movies, so it must have just been another time, sometime that we were talking about Leo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, should we get into the cast?
Yeah, I just want to say a quick note that the cast, they arrived to the house a few days before they started filming so that they could bond and feel like a family and have that type of interaction in their acting. Everyone was there doing that except for Steve because he was currently filming The Office. But I just thought that was so cute.
Cute. You can totally feel it in the movie because that's kind of what happens where like we see Steve's character Dan come in and everyone was already at the house sort of like hanging out together, and then Dan sort of gets this like outsider treatment a little bit, like everyone in the family is just like, he's got a lot going on, and I imagine that was more similar to their dynamic in real life, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also learned that for some of the nieces and nephews, they hired just local children.
Cool.
Do you think they had a casting call, or do you think they just like picked random kids?
I don't know. And I think it's actually kind of funny because watching the movie, I mean, I've seen it a million times. It's truly a movie that I could watch every single weekend and not get sick of it. But yeah, every time I watch it, I'm like, wait, I've never seen that kid before. Like, I feel like they switched them out. Like, there's a few main ones, but then there's some older ones where you're like, what? Who is this? Like, were they at the beginning of the movie? I don't know. If you pay close attention to the kids, you'll just see there's definitely more
Just
than
a bunch
there
of random
started
kids.
with. Yeah.
Wait, how amazing would that be if they really did just say, in every scene, let's swap out the kids and see if anybody notices?
That's kind of what it feels
And
like.
we didn't notice. Yeah.
Julie did.
Can't get it past me.
Okay, first let's talk about Steve Carell, who plays Dan.
Steve, my angel.
Yes. You know him from Anchorman, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, The Office, of course, Little Miss Sunshine, Evan Almighty, Despicable Me, which I always forget that he's Gru, right? Isn't he Gru?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And The Morning Show.
He's also, have you seen Beautiful Boy?
Mm-mm.
It's a very heavy movie and very sad, but
Really?
I think it's one of his best works with Timothy Chalamet, which, did you see the Timothy Chalamet lookalike contest that happened in New York this past weekend?
No.
I saw that.
Guys, it is the best thing I've ever seen on the internet.
Oh, I have to look after this.
And he showed up. It was just like some random person was like, I'm just going to make this whole event as a joke. The award was literally a $50 like giant check. And the trophy was like 5 feet tall. And all these people came that looked like Timothy Chalamet
So
and took
funny.
over Washington Square Park. The police literally came because they didn't have a permit for this event. And Timothy Chalamet himself showed up.
That's amazing.
And he did not win.
Did he just like kind of pretend to be one of the applicants?
No, he just showed up and everyone knew it was him.
So funny.
That's crazy.
It's like you have to go look now because the content is some of the best I've ever seen. It's so good.
I think I've just seen the like thirsty comments.
Oh my gosh. Well, because so many people also came that loved Timothy Chalamet and were just like trying to find a guy similar.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So funny.
Amazing.
Anyways.
I didn't know a lot about Steve Carell's personal life, so I kind of did a deep dive to see how he got famous. And I found that in the early 90s, he performed with the Second City Theater in Chicago, and Stephen Colbert was actually his understudy, and they later ended up having regular segments on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart together.
Wow, that's cool. I had no idea.
Me neither. I don't really put them in the same room, Stephen Colbert and Steve Carell.
No.
It's my dream to see Steve Carell do stand-up.
Does he still do stand-up?
I don't think so, but I just wish I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, look, every time you say something is your dream, it happens, so you're manifesting.
Just manifest it, yeah.
Steve's first role was in Anchorman, and the producer, Judd Apatow, was really into his performance and approached Steve about doing a movie together about a middle-aged man who was still a virgin, which is obviously The 40-Year-Old Virgin, which I've never seen, even though I know everything about that movie. Have you guys seen it?
I've tried watching it. It was definitely not my favorite, so.
I saw it once. It was also not my favorite. I remember thinking it was funny, but just not my favorite.
Okay, interesting. Good to know.
I just think his roles are so perfect and everything else, and that just like was not the vibe I wanted from him.
Okay, fair. Apparently, he and Judd Apatow developed and wrote the movie together, though, and that's what really took off Steve's career. And what I found out is that The Office came out several months before 40-Year-Old Virgin, and the first season really didn't do too well. But then NBC renewed it for a second season because they were anticipating that 40-Year-Old Virgin would do well. And they were right, and The Office soon became a success. And I don't know if that's just because The Office needed some time, but I would imagine that Steve Carell's fame really did launch The Office, so.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's wild, actually, that The Office almost didn't happen.
Yeah.
I know, can you imagine it being canceled after one season?
No.
Would be sad. He's been married to his wife, Nancy Walls Carell, since 1995, and they have 2 kids. They actually met when Steve was teaching improv at the Second City, and she was taking his class.
So cute.
Cute.
Yeah.
Also, that's so long. I feel like that's the longest marriage that we've talked about on the podcast.
95, you think?
Mm-hmm.
I think you might be right.
Yeah. I mean, in the like Hollywood world.
30 years. That's long.
I feel like we've had a few long ones lately, which has been nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy was an SNL cast member, and she was also a correspondent on The Daily Show.
Wow, so also very accomplished comedian.
Definitely.
Cool.
And then apparently Steve made his Broadway debut this year in Uncle Vanya alongside Allison Pill, who plays his daughter Jane in this movie.
You guys, I went to it.
You did?
You did?
Yes. I was like, I have to go to this. Like, Allison and Steve are in the same room together. I have to see this happen.
Julie's like, my family is performing.
Yes, I was like, family reunion is happening again. I'll be there. Don't worry. So I went by myself. I went the closing night, and I brought my picture book from my birthday weekend to have either one of them sign it. Guys, I was the last person waiting outside the stage door. They never came out because it was the same night as the Tonys, and it was happening at the same venue at Lincoln Center. And so they went through some, I don't know, other hallway to go to the other room where the Tonys were happening. Yeah, they never came out. I was the last person. I was like, surely someone. No. They never came out. But it was good. I mean, the play's not my favorite, but to see them both perform in person, it was like a spiritual experience. I was like, wow, perfect.
That's
perfect,
fun.
perfect. No notes. So
your life is the dream life, to be honest.
Oh my gosh, you guys.
I'm just so impressed with all of the things and all of the tidbits and things you've done. It's so cool.
It's fun. I have fun.
Okay, and then next we have Juliette Binoche, who plays Marie.
She's a French actress who's been in many French and English movies. The ones I recognized were Chocolat, is that how you say it? And Ghost in the Shell. And last year she was in the movie The Taste of Things, playing opposite Benoit Magimel, I'm not sure how you say his name, who was her ex-boyfriend, which, Julie, we actually just did an episode where we talked about someone playing a part with her ex-boyfriend.
Oh.
So it's kind of funny that we're doing this one right after.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Mm-mm.
They have one child together, and they actually haven't been together in over 20 years. And she said that it was freeing for her to do a film with him, though they haven't spoken since the movie. She said, I think we should all make films with every single boyfriend we've separated from.
Girl,
no, thank you, actually.
I'm okay with not.
Yeah.
And then something else I thought was cool is she plays Coco Chanel in the 2024 TV series The New Look.
Oh my gosh.
Have you seen it?
No, but she's just so beautiful and classy, and I'm like, wow.
Perfect for it.
That's incredible. I need to watch that.
Yeah, it's called The New Look, and it stars Maisie Williams too, so
cool.
I bet it's good.
That's super cool. Okay, now we have the ever controversial Dane Cook, who plays Mitch.
He's an actor and comedian. He's one of the first to actually build a large fan base from MySpace.
I did not realize that.
He's from Good Luck, Chuck, My Best Friend's Girl, Employee of the Month. I actually don't know if he's in other things too, but I feel like he is. I thought this was interesting about him. He studied graphic design in college as a backup plan if comedy didn't work out, and supposedly he designs all of his merch now, which I don't know if I fully believe, but maybe. He's been accused of plagiarizing Joe Rogan and Louis C.K., which just saying those two names together just made me laugh to like just the company that he keeps. I don't know.
Yeah, two names that you don't want to be associated with in a sentence.
No, not really. But both are on good terms with him, I guess, and Louis C.K. thinks that he didn't steal jokes from him on purpose, which is whatever. We can move on. His brother Daryl was his business manager until Dane discovered that he and his wife embezzled $12 million from him.
Whoa.
Wow.
They both went to jail.
Whoa.
I knew nothing about this man, by the way.
Same.
And this was like what I found just in a quick Google search.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like whenever I tell people that this is my favorite movie, they're like, oh, Dane Cook, though. And I'm like, I've never seen anything else he's in.
Am I missing something? Is there like more that he's controversial for besides like his bad jokes?
I think it's partially, I feel like I have not looked into this in forever, but I think he also does a lot of stand-up, and I think a decent amount of his stand-up is pretty sexist.
Like, I think that this movie that he's in is very much an outlier as far as his work.
That makes sense. This is a very wholesome role for him,
Yeah.
I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, not knowing any of his other work, I do enjoy him in this movie. Like, I think he does a good job.
Same. I actually
yeah.
love him in this movie. Okay, yes. Doing some quick Googling, a lot of the controversy around him is everything that you're saying, Jenny, is the plagiarism, is the stuff with his brother embezzling, and then also just some jokes that were in poor taste that people didn't like.
Yeah, that makes sense why people think he's controversial.
Yeah.
I thought this was kind of interesting. He's been in a relationship with a fitness instructor named Kelsey Taylor since 2017, and they got married last year. And he's super duper in love with her. But then I found out she's 26 years younger than him, and I was like, oh, okay.
Oh.
And that's all for him. We don't have to linger.
I was gonna say there's so much I could say, but we don't even need to. You guys know how we feel. Okay, let's talk about Allison Pill, who plays Jane, Dan's eldest daughter in the movie.
I completely forgot that she was the Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen girl.
I know. I feel like anytime I see her in something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this.
Mm-hmm.
But you recognize her face always. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes, like I know who she is, but I actually don't know which of the things that she's been in are the reason that I know who she is, but she's so distinct looking. So she's like very memorable.
Mm-hmm.
She's also in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I definitely don't recognize her in that movie because she has a wig on, I think, and red hair.
Mm.
She's from Aaron Sorkin's The Newsroom, Snowpiercer, American Horror Story Cult, so a lot of things. She's also done a lot of Broadway shows.
Uncle Vanya.
Was she good?
Oh, yeah. They were both incredible.
I bet that was such an experience. It's awesome.
Yeah. And I think she was his niece in the play, if I remember correctly. So it's kind of fun to see like a similar dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like father, daughter, uncle, niece.
Yeah.
That's cute.
I might be wrong about that, but.
She used to be engaged to Jay Baruchel. Do you guys know who that is?
No.
Mm-mm.
I thought I didn't either, but if you look him up, you'll recognize him. He's from She's Out of My League, Knocked Up, and he's Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon.
Okay.
And his face is just like, you'll remember seeing him somewhere before because it's memorable, I think.
Hmm.
But they broke off their engagement, and then since 2016, she's been married to Joshua Leonard from the Blair Witch Project, and they have a daughter named Wilder, which I thought was a cute name.
Cute name.
I have friends that have a boy named Wilder, and he's so cute.
Really?
Cute name.
Mm-hmm.
That is a cute name.
Okay, now let's talk about Britt Robertson.
I love her in this movie.
Me
She's so
too.
good.
She plays Kara, Dan's middle daughter.
I am such a big fan of hers,
Mm-hmm.
and I always forget that I'm a big fan of hers, but I love so many of her movies and shows. She's from Tomorrowland, The Space Between Us.
Is she? I get her confused with the actress from Sky High.
Oh, Danielle Panabaker.
They do look a lot alike.
Sure. Yes.
Wait, that's interesting. She actually reminds me of somebody else. I can't remember who it is, but I get her mixed up with a different actress who is not Danielle Panabaker.
Mm.
I'll see if I remember who it is. She's from The Secret Circle, which is the Vampire Diaries spinoff, which I love, and I'm so sad that they canceled. She's from Girl Boss, A Dog's Purpose, and Mr. Church, which is a movie that I remember loving. And it's with Eddie Murphy, I think. Her grandma took her to LA when she was 14 to audition for TV pilots, and they would knit together during downtime on set.
So cute. It's giving
Isn't it?
Olympics. It's giving
It
British
is.
swimmer boy Olympics.
It is.
Wait, tell me, was there somebody who was knitting?
The cutie British boy swimmer just like knits the cutest sweaters while he's waiting
Just
for
sitting in the
his
stands.
meets. Yeah. And
So
he has a
cute.
whole Etsy shop and everyone's obsessed. And he like knits based on which Olympics he's at. So he made his whole like Paris sweater this time.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna look him up after because he sounds like someone I need to follow immediately.
Oh yeah, he's so cute.
So wholesome. Britt started living by herself in LA when she was 16. I think she was already working by then. She recently got married to a British man named Paul Floyd, and they both hyphenated their names to Robertson Floyd, which I
Cute.
love.
Oh, I love that.
And in their wedding photos on Instagram, someone left a mean comment that they drink and party too much, and Britt will end up like the next Hayden Panettiere, and their marriage will last 1 year tops.
Okay.
Horrible thing to say, but they both handled it in the funniest way. On their 1 year anniversary, Paul posted on Instagram with a screenshot of that comment.
Nice.
That's a slay.
And they're just really goofy on social media. Like, both of them just seem really grounded and down to earth. I could be so wrong, but that's how they portray themselves. And their wedding looked really casual and fun.
Cute.
Like, they were wearing sunglasses and just having a good time. It looked cute.
I love that.
She also stars in the Netflix Christmas rom-com that just came out last week.
Whoa. I gotta get on that.
I know, where Chad Michael Murray is a stripper, and it's called The Merry Gentleman.
Incredible. I already know.
Can't wait to watch it.
Chad Michael Murray is all over the Netflix Christmas rom-coms.
Yes, honestly, good on him.
That's like where he's living, but I can't wait to see him in the new Freaky
Oh
Friday.
my god, I know.
Me too. Okay, I also have some honorable mentions. I feel like I've been talking for way too long, but we need to just talk about them because this cast was so stacked, but I'll try to breeze through it. We have Marlene Lawston, who plays Lily, Dan's youngest daughter, and Dan in real life was really her main acting gig, and I found out she's a doctor now,
Wow.
and she has a bachelor's in molecular biology with a minor in Chinese,
Incredible.
and was an EMT for many years, and she currently studies at Oxford.
How old is this girl? I'm like, surely she's still 10 or in the fourth grade, as they say
I can't
in the
imagine
movie.
her as an adult.
I'm like, sorry, is she older than us?
I think she might be a little younger than us or the same age.
Okay.
Well,
Probably 20s if she went straight to med school.
Yeah, maybe.
She's been an EMT for many, many years, guys.
And then we have Diane Wiest, who plays Dan's mom, and we just talked about her in our Practical Magic episode, and I totally didn't recognize her in this movie.
No, same. Not at all.
No, so it's kind of funny, but she was Aunt Jet in that movie, and she's only 14 years older than Steve Carell, even though she played his mom.
I feel like that's actually not uncommon. I feel like we've talked about a fair amount of parent-child combos, especially when they're both adults recently.
Yeah, isn't that kind of like Mean Girls? Like, isn't the mom?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Julie,
yes.
you know
That's
us
a big
so
one.
well.
I think I learned that from this podcast. Okay,
That's
this
a
is
big
an
one, yes.
educational podcast.
That's right.
Our claim to
Change our
fame.
category.
Your claim to fame is pointing out the age gaps between actors.
But I never would have guessed that for these two. I never would have guessed that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because I'm not used to seeing Steve Carell this young anymore. And so seeing him this young again just made me be like, oh, he's a baby. But maybe at the time it would have been more obvious.
And then we have Jessica Hecht, who plays Amy, one of the kids' aunts. And I just wanted to call her out because she's Susan, Carol's wife in Friends. And I was trying to pinpoint how I knew her, and that's how I knew her. And I know Megan's not a Friends fan. Are you a Friends fan, Julie?
I'm so sorry, I've never seen it.
It's okay. Somebody listening to this knows who I'm talking about, so.
Is she the one with the curly hair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You only watched the first episode, right? No, you watched the Thanksgiving episode. We did that for our Thanksgiving episode last year.
Yep. I did not recognize her from Friends, to be clear. But she, I think, stands out as, I don't know if she's Dan's sister or his, like, sister-in-law or something in the movie. But I remember her from this movie.
Okay. And then we have Amy Ryan, who plays Eileen, another aunt. And she was in The Office with Steve Carell after they were in Dan in Real Life together. She played Holly, who is Michael Scott's girlfriend. And I freaked out when I saw her come on the screen for Dan in Real Life. Because I was like, oh my gosh, they were in The Office together. And also just a tangential Office fun fact, Emily Blunt is in this movie. And soon after it came out, she married John Krasinski from The Office. So I thought that was kind of cool.
I brought up Beautiful Boy earlier, that it's, I think, one of Steve Carell's best works, but Amy and Steve are also in that movie together as well.
Cool.
It's a very, very, very heavy movie and very sad, but it has Steve Carell, Timothy Chalamet in it, and Amy.
Wow. I love it when people are just in the same things over and over again together, because that just signifies to me that they like each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, should we get into the movie recap?
Let's do it.
Okay, so the movie opens to Dan waking up in bed, and he rolls over and says, okay, and gets up. And we can tell he's just like this just cute, tired dad, immediately. And we can tell it's very early in the morning here, and he begins answering some requests right away on his computer for advice for his newspaper advice column.
Which I just want to point out right here, I never really knew why the movie was called Dan in Real Life. I thought it was just because it was like real human humor. But the name of his column is Dan in Real Life.
Oh. No, I never put that together.
You can see it. They show a little peek of the newspaper.
Maybe they needed to kind of sprinkle that throughout the movie a little more, because I did not catch that.
Neither.
Well, because I think it also gives like a nice vibe to the movie. Like the title is very, like I said, I just felt like it was kind of human humor.
It's fitting without even knowing that.
Yeah.
But that does make sense, totally. So then we see Dan doing laundry for his 3 daughters, and he finds a thong.
No.
Which I remember just this whole next few scenes being so hilarious. When I first watched this, I'm from a family of 3 girls, and we have a great girl dad. So this just reminded me, this whole movie reminds me of my dad in a lot of ways.
So cute.
Oh, that's sweet. It's funny because when I turned on this movie and saw that it was on Disney Plus, I was expecting it to be more like buttoned up or PG. And so starting with a thong, I was like, okay, I'm in for something different here.
Yeah.
And I'm glad. I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
So Dan brings the laundry upstairs and asks his oldest daughter, Jane, played by Allison Pill, if the thong is hers. And she just says, Dad. And he says, didn't think so. We realize it definitely belongs to his middle daughter, Kara, whose door is decorated with magazine cutouts. Then he checks in on his youngest, Lily, who just made her own bed. He says, I was going to do that for you later. And she says, now you won't have to.
Cute. I love Lily.
Just a note right here, there's some foreshadowing. The camera focuses in on a photo on her nightstand. It's of her and her mom. So I feel like they're already kind of setting up that scene.
Totally.
I did notice that. That was a good touch.
Yeah. At breakfast, and this is where he's making lunches also, and I think it's cute. You see him make a face with honey on one of the sandwiches, and it's just a straight face. And I think they do such a good job throughout the movie of really putting you into the feeling of how Dan's feeling. At the beginning, like he reaches over to like find his wife on that side of the bed and she's just not there. And he's like, okay, here we go. And then like showing his mood on the sandwich. And there's so many times further in the movie where he's left, like literally countless times where he's left alone in a room, like everyone leaves and it's just him. And he's just like, okay. And I just think they do a good job at bringing us into his world, into his real life.
Totally.
Dan says he's going to pack the car and pick the girls up from school for their annual family reunion. Kara complains that they're getting pulled out of school early for the family trip. Dan thinks it's hilarious that she's acting worried about school for the first time.
Then a boy named Marty shows up at the door and compliments Dan on his newspaper column. And Dan assumes that he's there for Jane, because he's this teenage boy. But when he says he's there for Kara, Dan says, nice to meet you, Marty. Come back in 2 years, and just closes the door in his face. And then Kara tells her dad that Marty is just her lab partner, and then the girls get on the school bus.
But I love that now we know why Kara cares so much about missing school.
Totally.
He's a boy.
Also, Marty is such an underappreciated hero in this movie, I will say.
I love him.
He's sweet.
He's so sweet.
Dan picks up Jane and Lily from school, and Jane tells him that Kara is at a cafe called Yums.
I have to butt in because now I'm going to start sprinkling in experiences of being at these places. Actually, that's false. I didn't make it to this one, but this one does exist. And it was on my list to visit on that birthday weekend. I didn't make it over there, but it's this cafe in Providence, Rhode Island called 7 Stars Bakery. And the inside of the cafe is a different location than the outside that they filmed. So they filmed it in 2 different places. But if you want to see the outside of Cafe Yums or whatever they're at, it's in Providence.
Cool.
So I will make it there someday.
Oh, we know you will. Dan argues with Jane because he won't let her drive, and he says he trusts her, but not the other drivers on the road. We can tell this has been an ongoing argument, and it's definitely not the last time we're going to hear about this. Then they pull up to Yums to pick up Kara, and through the window, Dan sees Kara almost kiss Marty, and he bangs on the window to stop them. On the way out, Kara freaks out and says she loves Marty and he doesn't understand. She says she knew in 3 days that she loved him. And Dan says she can't know she's in love in 3 days, and he grounds her for a month for lying to him. I think she says something too, like, that's worse than being grounded for life.
Yeah.
They drive off and start their road trip to the family reunion, and all 3 girls are mad at him.
They get to the family reunion house, guys. The house, it's here. And okay, I'm ready to share my hot tea. So I was searching to find this house to stay in, okay? You know, I looked all these different places, contacted all these different people. I never got connected to the house. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'm going to just heartbreakingly accept that I'm not staying at this house. So I find a house very similar, which was very hard because it had to have the wood paneled walls, the fireplace, the outdoor closed in porch for the crossword puzzle competition, had to be close to water for the rock skipping competition, just all the things they do in the movie. Like, I needed to have a house like this. So I found one that was amazing. That's a whole other story. But you guys, I went to the house. I had the address of the house from the movie. So I was like, let's just drive by it. We're going to go see what's the deal. Like, I just have to see this house. It's in Jamestown, Rhode Island. So we drive up to the house. My heart is beating. I'm like, what's going to happen? Who's going to be there? Do I knock on their door? Do I tell them I'm obsessed and crazy? So I drive up to this house. It's abandoned. Can you even believe this? So we drive onto the driveway, and I'm with a bunch of my friends, and we're all just like silent, looking around like, what is happening right now? We go to the backyard. We realize we are at this house at sunset. It's the most magical environment on the water with the sun setting. We realize we're at this house. We all just start jumping around with the most insanely genuine joy of my life. And we're blasting the song September because that's what they dance to on the lawn. And the video I have from this moment is so funny because you see us all realize what's happening at the exact same time. And it's just, I will never forget that moment. Truly one of the best moments of my life. So I've been to the actual house and it's abandoned. And then we were all like, oh my gosh, do we buy this house? Like, what is that? Do we all pool together and buy this house? But I think what happened, or what is happening, is there's a house being built like right next to it, literally feet away. And I think it's on the same property. So I wonder if it's like the same owners and they're building a house right next to it. And I hope they don't tear this down. But the driveway looked like it had been newly re-graveled. So I don't know. And it was abandoned, but it was like neatly abandoned. So it seemed like someone had just like put pause on it a few years ago, but they're still like there, if that makes sense.
Like someone owned it, but they didn't live there.
Yeah. But it was so iconic just being in all these places, being on the porch, looking over the water. And it was so funny because we reenacted so many of the different scenes. Like there's a scene where Marty and Kara, they're making out on the rock. So my husband and I, we went and like made out on the rock. And we did the little aerobics dancing around. And yeah, we spent, probably an hour as the sun set just dancing around with joy. So it was really, really special.
Fun. That's so
I'm
fun.
so happy that it worked out for you, that you actually got to go to the property itself.
Yeah, you still got your moment with the house, even though you didn't get to stay there.
Yeah, it was really amazing.
Aww.
So back to the house. They get to the family reunion house. They're greeted by Dan's parents and his siblings and their kids. Dan's mom mentions that his brother Mitch has a friend coming, which means Dan is stuck sleeping in the special room. We see that this room has a pull-out twin bed next to the washer and dryer. The mom starts the laundry and kisses him goodnight. I think this is so funny because I'm like, why could you not just do the laundry during the day?
I thought the same thing.
And it happens twice. I'm like, girl, get your laundry schedule under control. Like, Dan needs to get some sleep. But yeah, I think it's funny that they just play that up. And the mom also is so funny. Anything that comes out of her mouth, I'm like, you cringe, but just in the most like loving way. I don't know.
It's very endearing.
Yeah. She's always like, Dan, honey. I feel like she probably had such a fun time with this role.
Definitely. The next morning, Dan's mom sends him to town to get the paper because she says that he and the girls just need space because they were arguing in the car the whole day before. And he stops by this cute bookstore called the Book and Tackle Shop.
I have another note. I went to the tackle shop.
You did.
It's right down the street from the house in Jamestown. And yeah, it's actually not a bookstore or a tackle shop. I don't even really actually know what it is, but I've been to the building, and I think they changed it into a bookstore for the movie. And yeah, it was amazing. We reenacted the scene where they part ways, where she's like, "Call or don't," and he's like, "I would even call to say I'm not calling."
Yeah.
And yeah, that also was right on the water, looking over the bridge that goes to Newport. So really beautiful area. And I will also note the way that I invited my friends to this weekend was I wanted it to be similar to the movie, where the way that their whole love story starts is he goes to get a newspaper, and that's where he meets her. And so my invite to that weekend was I created this whole newspaper with all the info, and I mailed it to my friends. And
Cute.
it has a picture of my face on the front on a stack of pancakes like the movie.
Cute.
Yeah, you guys, Julie sent us all of the photos of the newspaper and a video flip through of it, and it is
Incredible.
phenomenal. Just amazing.
I took longer to plan this birthday than I did my wedding, so
Birthdays are important, okay?
I was really, especially in February when it's so cold, you're just like, I need something to live for, and it's Dan in real life.
Yes, that's really special.
So while Dan's at this bookstore, a woman comes in, and this is Marie. And he's immediately drawn to her, and he watches her from across the shop, but then she thinks that he works there, so she asks for his help finding a book that will help her get out of an awkward situation. She wants something funny that will make her feel swept up, but not. She has a lot of these like specifications and like really funny contradictory sentences, so she really just doesn't know what book she wants, but Dan does a great job talking to her anyway.
Yeah, I really want to point out right here, because when she's explaining what book she wants, I think that she's explaining this movie. Like, I kind of want to read what she says. She says, "I'm looking for a book, something that can help me deal with what might be an awkward situation," which is exactly what this movie is. Something funny might be nice, but not necessarily big, ha ha ha, laugh out loud kind of funny, which is exactly what this movie is. And certainly not make fun of other people funny. That one's debatable because they talk about Ruthie Pigface Draper, but rather something human funny. And if it could sneak up on you, surprise you, and at the same time make you think that what you thought wasn't only right in a wrong kind of way, but when you're wrong, there's a certain rightness in your wrongness. Well, what I mean is, more importantly, I'm looking to be swept up, and at the same time, not. And I just think that's exactly what this movie is, because yeah, it is kind of wrong. Like, he's moving in on his brother's girlfriend, but then you're also rooting for them and like debating with yourself over that. And it's not laugh out loud funny. It's very human funny, and it is swept up. And the theme of the whole movie is plan to be surprised. And so I think that they purposely are like, okay, we're just gonna describe the movie right here.
I love that note. That's really cute.
And I think you're totally right.
That makes me appreciate it more.
So then Dan and Marie walk around the shop, and he finds a ton of options for her as she's giving this long quote. And he explains that he grabbed all these options because he says, rarely will one book make you feel all of those things. So then she buys all the books that he suggests, and the checkout guy tells her that Dan doesn't actually even work there.
Dan asks her to go out for coffee across from the bookstore. And she asks Dan all about his childhood, and they talk and laugh for what seems like hours. And Dan is doing much of the talking here. He actually doesn't really learn much about Marie. He tells Marie about his wife who got sick and passed away. She says it must be hard, and when he says they're okay now, she says you don't have to smile. And he says it's better than the alternative. And I just love this moment of seeing how Dan views life, I feel like, and how he's like dealing with his grief by like not quite dealing with it and putting on like a happy face for his girls. I thought it was interesting. Then Marie gets a call and she says she has to go. Dan asks for her number and she says that'd be awkward because she's in a new relationship. But Dan says that they'd just be two people finishing a conversation. So she gives him her number.
And this is where that line happens where he's like, I'd even call to say I'm not calling. And he's kicking himself. But then he gets distracted thinking about that conversation while driving home. He runs a stop sign and gets pulled over. I have driven on that street. It is in Newport. So all this information can be found online. But yeah.
I love that they filmed it all there, that they just found everything right there.
I mean, yeah, there are like the lighthouse they go to, the bowling alley, those are further away. But yeah, a lot of it takes place around Newport. At home, everyone immediately clocks that something is up with Dan. He admits that he met someone special in town. The family starts debating about when Dan should call her. His brother Mitch says, let's ask Annie.
So then moments later, Mitch comes into the room with his girlfriend Annie, but it's Marie, the same girl that Dan just met in the bookstore. We find out that her full name is Anne Marie, and she normally goes by and prefers Marie, but Mitch calls her Annie because he knows too many women with M names, which is lame, obviously. And then Mitch says that Dan needs her opinion on what to do about the hottie he met downtown, which just like embarrasses the shit out of Dan and is really funny because we, the audience, know why this is embarrassing, but Mitch has no idea. Then later, Dan is talking to his brothers, and Mitch says it's not his problem if the girl he met is dating somebody. And Dan says, yeah, it kind of is. And we also just see this entire time that the whole family loves Marie. And Dan is obviously like upset and jealous because I think this gave him hope for the first time. And then to see her with somebody else already just makes him jealous. So then Dan finds Marie later on in the evening and says that he would have never talked to her if he knew that she was Mitch's girlfriend. And for the record, he never called her a hottie. Marie tells Dan that she just ended a long, messy relationship, so something uncomplicated with Mitch is exactly what she needs right now.
That night, Dan's family asks Marie a ton of questions all night, and Dan tells his family to stop grilling her because they never grilled Mitch's previous girlfriends. Not the body double, massage therapist, the flight attendants, and it gets really awkward at the dinner table because he just mentioned all of Mitch's ex-girlfriends.
And if you feel inspired after this podcast to throw your own Dan in real life themed party, this scene has a lot of good food themed things that you could eat at your birthday.
What's one that you remember being really good?
We had pie because he like stabs a knife into the pie. He has an incredible line right here where the brother is like, oh, when I saw Marie, it's like I was in the room with an angel or something. And then Dan is like, this corn is like an angel. Like he's trying to take all the attention off of it. So we had corn and...
Which apparently that was improv, that corn line.
Yeah, I saw that too. I love that.
Mm-hmm. And I guess Alison Pill, was it Alison Pill who was like laughing? And you can kind of see her laughing in that scene.
Yeah. I think it's in the special features. If you have this on DVD, it is in the special features. Like they have an interview where they talk about that. That's probably the video that you watched on YouTube. Which, can we just talk about how much we are missing out by not having any special features anymore?
I know. That used to be my favorite part of DVDs.
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense that we all love those as we're sitting here doing this podcast.
Yeah.
I don't even have a DVD player anymore. I need one.
I don't
you
either.
can borrow mine. I will put it in the mail for you. It's like a plug-in for my computer. It's not a whole thing.
Oh, that's smart, actually.
And the only DVDs I have are Dan in Real Life, Freaky Friday. It's just like all the, Lizzie McGuire
all the
movies.
Best ones.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I'm like, I literally can watch these online, but why would I? I have the special features and the nostalgia right here. So
love it.
Anyways, after dinner, the whole family plays charades, but Dan has to do the dishes alone to make up for his behavior at the table. Dan tries to come clean about meeting Marie in the bookstore, but Mitch cuts him off and says his comments at dinner made him realize he feels differently about Marie. It's love. Mitch also ends up giving Marie a signed copy of the book Dan wrote. I love that it's always Mitch giving Dan's words to Marie.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when he's explaining when they're doing the dishes, Dan is always butting in to finish the sentences for his brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then they give the book, and it's just always Dan. That's why Marie is into Mitch, is because of what Dan has rubbed off on him.
Totally.
I love that.
The next morning, Mitch and Marie lead the family in this Zumba class, which is amazing. After the class, Dan tries to get his daughters to leave the house with him for some quality alone time, but Jane and Carell refuse and they won't come. So Dan ends up taking Lily and his niece and nephew into town. But the candy shop he wanted to go to is closed, and then the bowling alley that he wanted to take them to is closed. And he just says, life is full of disappointments, and he ends up taking the kids to see a lighthouse, which is much more boring. And then when he gets back to the house, all the kids say they didn't have a good time. And Dan sees Mitch and Marie come back from a run, and they're like talking about how they had such a great time. So it's just such a big contrast to the day that Dan had.
Dan checks on Kara and spies on her phone call with Marty. She sees him crawling on the floor to spy, and she calls him a loser, and it's just the funniest dad scene.
Mm-hmm.
I did realize watching it, I watched it last night to prepare for this again, And I realized he actually wasn't going to spy on her. He was going to talk to Marie. Like, I always thought that he just kind of ended up in that situation. But you can hear he's like in the bunk being all sad. He's like sulking, and the mom is like, "Oh, Marie, do you need extra towels or whatever?" Like, they turn up the sound at that moment so that you clock that.
Oh.
And then he is trying to go up and like hide from Kara and sneak into the bathroom to be like, "Hey, we need to talk about this." And it's like literally not interesting, but I realized it actually is different than what I always thought it was.
That's not what I thought either. But then that makes it even cuter because he's just like, I'm not trying to interrupt this. I'm just trying to get through.
But then he's just like so dorky.
Yeah.
Which kind of seems more in line with his character too. Like, I don't really see him as someone who would be spying on his daughter, even though he doesn't want her dating Marty. So that makes sense. That's cute. I love when we find that kind of stuff out. Then Dan confronts Marie when she's getting ready in the bathroom and goes on a rant, saying that she needs to stop doing her salsa dance moves and reading his book. He also says, and there are other things you can do, such as not exist.
I love this scene. I think it's one of the best scenes in the whole movie.
Yeah, she's not offended. She's just kind of laughing at his antics.
Also, Steve Carell's delivery makes this so endearing for some reason.
Yes.
Whereas, like, if this was a just douchebag being like, this is your fault that I'm attracted to you, you know, it would not come across the way that it does in this movie, but he just delivers it perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. He says he's going to make himself less attractive and try to stop thinking about her. As they're talking, Jane comes into the bathroom to get Marie's advice, and Dan hides in the shower with all his clothes on, and Marie turns it on, and he has a hard time hearing what's going on between them.
Which I think it's cute too, because the daughter is like, "Oh, can we talk about this like just between me and you?" And this really shows Marie's character that, you know, it's like this moment for the dad to be like, "Oh my gosh, I get to hear like what my daughter's thinking about." But Marie's like, "No, girl code, let me turn this on so you can't hear." Like, she wants to confide in me, and I just think that's cute of her.
Yeah.
Marie is for the girls.
Yeah.
When the shower starts to steam, Jane tells her that she can go ahead and get in. And Marie does. And she starts to step in with her clothes on, and then Jane is like, "You're still dressed." So then Marie takes off her clothes while Jane turns away. And I was just confused by this moment.
She literally turns away. She could still just step in.
And I also just feel like, why couldn't you just be like, you know what? My shower can wait a few more minutes.
I'll sit here and talk to you for a few minutes. Don't even worry about it.
But then we wouldn't have this scene.
I know. This I think is the least realistic scene in the movie, but I still love it.
Yeah, this one does not hold up to the Dan in real life scene.
So now Marie is naked in the shower with Dan, while Jane is just rambling about travel and growing up and trying to confide in Marie. And eventually Dan climbs out of the bathroom window and he falls off the roof.
When I was at the house, I was like studying the windows to be like, okay, this is where he fell. I think that's the bathroom. Like, yeah.
Iconic.
Dan's parents come to his room for a heart-to-heart because they're worried about him. As they're talking, everyone comes in to do the laundry. The laundry, again, why? And butts into the conversation and gives their advice. At least they're doing it during the day this time. His mom says she set up a date for Dan with someone named Ruthie Draper. Mitch immediately makes fun of this because they used to call her Ruthie Pigface Draper when they were growing up. Mitch offers to make it a double date so it's less awkward. The family all makes fun of his date with Ruthie by making pig jokes.
Which is so mean.
So mean. So then Ruthie shows up to pick up Dan, and it's Emily Blunt. I totally forgot she was in this. We find out that she's a doctor, and she's also completely gorgeous. So everyone is just kind of shut up about all of the making fun of her. And then Ruthie and Dan and Mitch and Marie all go out together. While they're out, Ruthie talks about someone she loved who had a terrible accident and how she only knew him for 3 days, but she just knew. This is important because this is a theme that keeps coming back. We heard Kara say she just knew after 3 days. Now we've heard Ruthie say it. And then Ruthie admits that when she can't sleep, she reads Dan's column. And we can actually see Marie getting jealous because Ruthie seems really into Dan. Whereas this entire time so far, Marie has been the one that's been very like, no, I'm into Mitch. Like, I'm not here for you. So that's kind of fun to like see the tables turn a little bit. And then Dan and Ruthie start dancing. And so then Marie pulls Mitch onto the dance floor to join them. And it's basically a who is having more fun competition between Dan and Marie. They're both getting like more and more intense, which is really funny. And it's like they're both trying to prove to the other that they're really into their current partners and they're really happy about their current situation and they're like so happy to be there dancing with the person that they're dancing with, even though we know that they're not. And then after dancing, they go home and they drop Mitch and Marie off so that Dan and Ruthie can go for a drive, which makes Marie even more jealous.
This is where the movie really takes a turn. Like, this is where Marie, her character, has a huge shift.
Definitely.
And now, like, the tables have turned.
Oh, completely agree. And now we know that she feels the same way about Dan. The next day, Dan and Marie are still acting weird with each other. Marie purposely burns Dan's pancakes, and Dan tackles her during the family football game. After the game, Dan gets a call that he scored a meeting with some newspaper execs to talk about syndicating his column.
Which, okay, can someone explain to me what syndication means? I tried looking this up and I was like, I still don't understand, but I need the writers to describe this to me.
I'm pretty sure it's when you get picked up by other publications for your same column. So like it might get syndicated to like a larger media company that owns a lot of different newspapers. I know that's how it works with radio anyway.
I think that's right. I think it would be like in many different newspapers at once.
So like if the newspaper execs that he met with owned like a whole market, like, or say they owned like 4 or 5 different newspapers in the Midwest or something, then if they pick up his column, it could go in all of those papers.
Okay.
I believe.
I've seen this movie so many times and just like, oh yeah, no idea what that is. I don't care. Okay.
And I never look it up either. I always am just like, okay. I'll know what I need to know about it by the end of the movie. Dan's excitement comes crashing down when Jane tells him that Lily just asked her why he was flirting with Marie. He says that he wasn't, but Jane doesn't believe him.
Yeah, I love when she's like, Dad, I'm 17. You are flirting. Dan sees all the kids spying over the edge of the big rock and goes to see what they're looking at. It turns out they're watching Kara making out with Marty.
Oh my gosh.
And I did, in fact, make out with my husband on that same rock.
I love that.
Yeah. He took a bus there. Dan drags Kara back to the house. She tries to comfort him by saying, "Don't worry, Dad. When it comes to sex, Marty is the one who wants to wait." He says, "What about this sentence is supposed to give me comfort?"
I was losing it.
Kara reassures him that they're in true love and says he doesn't understand. He says, "What don't I understand?" And then goes on a rant about how he knows how it feels to be connected to someone but not be able to be with them. Marie overhears this. And of course, he's talking about Marie that whole time.
Mm-hmm. So then Dan sends Marty home and gets one of the uncles to drive him to the bus stop. And as he's leaving, Marty says that he loves Kara and that he's realized love isn't a feeling, it's an ability. And then Kara sobs as Marty is leaving. Marie goes up to Dan and says that it's sweet that she's so sure about how she feels. And Dan says, love isn't a feeling, it's an ability. And just quotes Marty back to her. And then Kara chases the car down the driveway and turns and screams the very famous line at Dan, "You are a murderer of love." And this is one of my family's most used quotes.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I think this is another one of the best scenes in the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, Britt Robertson did a great job in this movie.
She's the VIP of this movie, I think. Just every scene that she's in is so funny, but also like so, I think, realistic of like a teenage girl's feelings, but she just lets it all out. So I think she's hilarious.
This is why this movie is so good. I just feel
know.
like the casting of every single role, you're like, yeah, that's so that. Like she is so that teenage girl.
It's very honest.
Then it's family talent show night. Mitch convinces Dan, who's normally exempt from participating, to perform with him. He hands Dan a guitar, and one of the aunts says to Marie that she doesn't believe it because Dan hasn't played since his wife died 4 years ago. Mitch sings "Let My Love Open the Door," and he keeps forgetting the words, so Dan ends up joining him in singing most of the song. It's really cute. And then he sings the last part of the song by himself very softly to Marie, and it makes her cry.
Mm.
Cute.
So as you're planning your Dan in Real Life themed party, this is another moment that you can take a lot of inspiration from. I studied out this talent show scene, and I decorated our talent show like exactly the way that I could. And yeah, we had a talent show, and it was definitely the highlight of the weekend. So that was really fun. But
I'm obsessed. Megan, there are videos in Instagram that Julie shared with us if you want to look at them.
Oh, I need to watch. I'll watch
Well,
after this.
and hopefully by the time this episode comes out, I've been so overwhelmed. Like I said, this actually was the best weekend of my life, and I'm still recovering from the joy from it that I have not posted anything. And going through all these videos the other day, I was like, wow, there's so much gold in here. Like I have to post this.
It's
But
time.
yeah,
You
so I
have
think
to.
I'm gonna post a few for this, so hopefully people can go check it out. But yeah, and we also printed out the lyrics to that song, like "Let My Love Open the Door," and we all sang all together the song, so it's really
Fun.
cute.
Oh, that's so fun.
Cute.
I totally relate though. Whenever I go on a really good trip or something, I feel like I just never end up posting about it because I'm like,
Yeah,
it's too overwhelming for me to try to put this into a post, and then I just end up not doing it. But then I
yeah,
always kick myself because I'm like, oh, I did these like 4 or 5 or whatever amazing things this year, and then I never posted them. So
yeah. Even just a journal for yourself.
totally.
I feel like when you have a really magical experience like that, it's so hard to condense it to just like a handful of pictures and videos that really
Yeah,
show how the experience was to you. And so that's where I always kind of pull back and don't post anything. I haven't posted
totally.
since like, oh, well, I posted my engagement, but I was going to say I like never post on Instagram. And that's because of that.
You know, I feel like there's like magic in that too, though. After the show, Marie comes to Dan's room and is upset. She says, "Why did you sing for me? What are we supposed to do now?" It's clear they can't deny what's going on between them. Marie also says all of Mitch's best lines, the romantic ones he's been saying throughout the movie, came from Dan's book. She says she can't keep pretending. When Marie leaves the room, Lily asks Dan to come see what she's made, but he says he'll look tomorrow.
Then we cut to the next morning and we see Marie and Mitch talking outside, and she gets in her car and leaves. And the whole family is watching this go down from the window. And then Mitch comes inside and tells everyone that Marie broke up with him and said they both need to find their own true soulmates.
Then Dan gets a call from Marie while the family is playing games. She admits she didn't get very far out of town, so Dan immediately goes to his car. Lily asks if she can show him what she made him again, and he says first thing when he gets back. Then he runs the same stop sign that he ran last time and gets pulled over again. And the cop is played by Matthew Morrison, aka Will Schuester from Glee, and that was a great cameo. I was excited. Eventually, Dan meets Marie in the parking lot of the bowling alley and gets into her car. It's pouring rain, and they start talking about what they're going to do, and Dan says, "I think this is all premature. We don't even know if you can bowl." And they go bowling, and it's a hilarious and cute date, and they're the only ones there. And the woman working at the bowling alley notices how cute they are and turns the lights off for cosmic bowling time. And Dan and Marie keep bowling in the dark and then hug each other and make out.
Ah! Okay, I have so many fun facts right now. The woman at the bowling alley, she actually worked at the bowling alley. Like she was an actual
Aw.
employee. Yeah.
I love that.
And I went to this bowling alley. It's called Alley Cats. It's in, I think it's called Westerly, Connecticut. But I went to it. That's the sweatshirt I'm wearing right now. And I made sure that I booked our group reservation for the time where I knew they would be turning off the lights to start Cosmic Bowling, because it starts like at 7 p.m. or whatever. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to book it for 6:30 so we can have this like kiss as they turn off the lights. And it was epic and amazing. And at this bowling alley, of course, I'm freaking out telling the people there that we're having this whole themed weekend. And the guy was so cute and was like, "I have to show you our Dan in real life shrine." They like had this whole thing on the wall. They had all these photos from the movie of the cast being there. And he was like, "Yeah, I was just a kid when they were filming it, but it was like the talk of the town, and us, like me and my friends, we would all drive around and go try and like see the stars and see where they were filming and all these things." And he was really, really excited to host us and like show us all these things. So it just made it even more special.
That is so sweet. I think that's what makes this movie feel so different than other movies, is that the place does feel really authentic, and everything you're telling me is just proving that to be true. That like these places really exist, that people really exist. And yeah, it's just so cozy and nice.
Yeah.
So suddenly all the lights turn on. Dan's girls say, "Dad, what are you doing?" Dan's entire family is there. Everyone's mad at him, and Mitch is upset that they just broke up 2 hours ago. Yeah, I love this line right here. Dan's like, "You guys broke up, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, 2 hours ago." Dan explains that Maria is the woman he met downtown at the bookstore that he told them about. Mitch punches Dan and Marie runs out. We did not reenact that part, I will say.
That's wise.
Good.
Then Dan rushes out after Marie and accidentally backs his car into the car of the same cop that has pulled him over twice.
Is there only one cop in this town? I don't understand.
So.
Definitely.
Then we see Dan lose his license because of the tickets and because of this crash. And then when Dan gets back to the family reunion house, the newspaper execs are there waiting for him. So this is just like such a cluster. And everyone is acting nice for Dan's benefit, including Kara, who offers everyone hot cider. And then she gives her dad this mug and leans into his ear and whispers, "Not only are you a murderer of love, but you are the worst parent." The execs say that they're considering 2 other candidates, but they love Dan for his moral values, honesty, trustworthiness, and the way he puts family first. And Dan says, somebody hasn't been reading his own column. And then one of the execs says, "I'm not sure what that means."
Dan goes to talk to his daughters, but Jane and Kara ice him out. They say he's a liar and a cheater, and they can't believe the car trouble that he's gotten into. And this is especially relevant because he's been fighting so much with Kara about relationships and with Jane about driving. So now they're like, "Wow, you're a hypocrite, Dad." But they say the worst of all is that he blew off Lily when she wanted to show him what she made for him. He opens Lily's craft, and it's a very sweet painting with photos glued in of the 5 of them, their whole family, Dan, the 3 girls, and his late wife, having fun. I also noticed in this scene that he's still wearing his bowling shoes, and I love that detail that they kept him in his bowling shoes. He ran straight out.
He's just a mess. He's coming apart in this scene, I feel.
Dan sits with his parents and says he feels horrible about hurting his kids. But his mom says, "Go unhurt them. You've made some mistakes, but falling for Marie wasn't one of them."
Dan starts by apologizing to Mitch, but then we see Ruthie pull up in her convertible to pick Mitch up for a date, and Mitch is already over it. He's over Marie, and he's excited to get with Ruthie now. And then Dan apologizes to his girls, and he says, "I miss your mom all the time, and I always will." He says he sees her in Jane's goodness, Kara's passion, and Lily's eyes and smile. And he grounds himself for life and says he got a little confused with Marie, but that's over. And he says he got a little stupid because he loves her. Then he backtracks and says he can't love her because he's only known her 3 days. And how can you know in 3 days? Which is what he said to Kara about Marty earlier. And then he says, "Yes, I do. I love her." And Jane says, "Then go get her." And Kara says, "We so prefer her to you." And then Lily hugs him and tells him to go.
I think it's so cute that he grounds himself for life here because he grounded Kara earlier for life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then he goes. He runs out the door to go after Marie, and his mom gives him a lunch bag for the road, which I just thought was the funniest detail.
She knew.
But then he realizes that he doesn't have a license and can't go. The 3 girls walk out, and he shares a knowing look with Jane. So she'll drive them, finally.
We hear a voiceover from Dan. It's his first piece in his syndicated column, whatever that means. In the voiceover, he says, "If we're really honest with ourselves, most of the time, our plans don't work out as we'd hoped." We see him and the girls find Marie running on a treadmill at her gym in New York City, which I always forget that this movie has a New York City moment, which makes it even, I mean, as someone that lives in New York City, I just love a New York City rom-com. Like, that is the coziest peak rom-com to me. So I love that this has a little bit of that sprinkled in, and I'm just like, oh, of course. So cozy, so cute.
Completely agree.
They smile at each other through the window. His voiceover continues. So instead of asking our young people, "What are your plans? What are you going to do with your life?" maybe we should tell them this. Plan to be surprised. And the credits roll.
During the credits, we see Dan and Marie's wedding, and it's back at Dan's parents' house where they had the family reunion. It's at the house. And Marty is at the wedding with Kara, and Ruthie is there with Mitch, and Dan and Marie dance with the 3 girls and then with each other, and that's the end.
And we did not even talk about the music in this movie. The music is I feel like such a huge part of why this movie feels so cozy.
Mhm.
It's all by this artist. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's Sandre Lerche. He is performing at that wedding. Like, that's actually him at the wedding
Oh,
singing
wow.
the songs. Yeah, and it's his music throughout the whole movie. And a funny note, one of my friends that came to the birthday weekend, she has been with her boyfriend. She was like joking. She was like, "Oh, if you get Sanjay Lerche, however you say it, to come to this weekend, then we'll get married at the end of the weekend." And so I was like, okay,
Julie's
don't
like,
put it
"Don't
past
tempt
me. And I looked him up on Instagram, and he like actually seems like I could approach him. I mean, not like I would not actually do this. Like,
Mhm.
she was definitely joking, and I am too. But I was like, I have to go see if I can. But I obviously did not reach out to him. But
Honestly, if she knows you at all, she knows not to make those jokes with you because
No.
you'll make it happen. You'll make it happen.
No, I would not do that. But I just thought that was funny. So yeah, I think the music is just so good. It's so cozy.
It is, and I love that he was in it. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Julie, for joining us. Will you remind the listeners where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. It's __ Jules Rose __. Those underscores are killers. But yeah, Jules Rose, like the flower. And I just joined TikTok a few months ago too for the first time. So that was fun.
Oh, plug the TikTok. Is it the same handle?
I think so. Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. But I'm having fun with reels lately. So I'll make a few reels of the Julie turns 30 in real life weekend so we can all get the Dan in real life inspo.
Yeah, maybe we can reshare them so that everyone can see because I just feel like what I've seen so far of it is so magical and I know people are going to really appreciate it, especially people who listen to this podcast. So
it was really fun. But I had so much fun today. Thank you so much for having me. This was truly a dream. And yeah, I'm just a huge fan of the podcast. So I'm excited to keep following along.
we really appreciate you coming on and we appreciate all of your fun facts and just your stories about making this party happen.
Oh, thank you. And I feel like I also learned so much from all the notes you guys found for this movie.
Yay! Thank you guys so much for listening.
And we'll be back next week.
Bye.